Hi, welcome to There Will Be Podcast. My name is Pilar, and this is Ryan.
Yes, and you have green hair now?
I do have green
I'm
hair.
wearing a green shirt.
I'm also wearing my favorite green sweater that I bought two of.
And this week we're going to be discussing Bong Joon Ho's 2019 Best Picture winning, Palme d'Or winning, Golden Globe Best Foreign Language winning, BAFTA Best Non-English winning, SAG Outstanding Cast Performance winning, etc. award-winning film, Parasite. Quickly though, before we get into the synopsis for Parasite, I just want to mention that we always announce the next film in advance so you can watch it along with us, so we don't spoil anything for you. This especially applies to a film with a major plot twist like Parasite. So if you haven't seen Parasite yet, stop the video now.
Go watch it.
And go watch it. I mean, it's worth it.
And then come back to us, please.
Yeah, and then come back, of course. Yeah, and with that, let's get into the synopsis. So, Parasite is a dark comedy thriller centered around two Korean families, the Kims and the Parks, who are from vastly different socioeconomic worlds. The Kims live with stink bugs in a semi-basement apartment deep in the slums of the city, but strike a bit of luck when their son is gifted the opportunity to take over as the English tutor of the Parks' high school sophomore daughter. One by one, the Kims infest the Park's luxurious lives by impersonating professional servants, even replacing trusted members of the Park's staff. However, before long, the symbiotic relationship between the two families is undermined when the Kims make an unexpected discovery in the deep recesses of the Park's extravagant home. And yeah, with that, there's a lot of characters. Let's get into the characters.
All right.
Yeah, go for it.
So I'll be taking care of the characters, and the first one is Mr. Kim. He is the father of the Kim family, and he's a father who is struggling to keep a job and provide for his family, despite having a bunch of experience and a bunch of value work-wise. Overall, he's a nihilist in his views on life, but as his attitudes change once his son kind of becomes the one who takes on the role of like pulling the family out of poverty, so it's kind of uplifting his spirit that he doesn't have to feel that pressure of like being the sole head of the household.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other father on the wealthier side is Mr. Park, and he is a wealthy businessman who has his position and kind of boundaries already set for both his family and for his home staff, and he really expects those to be met. He is nice enough, but he does come off as rather snobbish, specifically to Mr. Park, who he confides in. Oh, sorry, Mr. Kim, who he confides in because that Mr. Kim is his driver.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Then we have Chung Suk, who is wife of Mr. Kim, and she's kind of a tough love mother who is suggested to have peaked in her high school life as in sports, and so. But she seems to be bogged down by poverty and kind of the overall responsibility she has to her family. Mm-hmm. And then on the other side, we have Mrs. Park. She's your typical nice, wealthy, naive wife and mother, and she mainly concerns herself with buying American products and just keeping the overall look and status of her family kind of, pressed and clean.
Yeah, she's kind of like a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
But then she still has servants and tutors for her children.
Yeah, she kind of likes that she doesn't know how to do anything. So.
Yeah.
Then we have Kevin, who that's his alias, who is Gingyu. He is the oldest son of the Kim family, and he's the one who is extremely smart and ambitious and tries extremely hard to bring his family out of poverty. He's really hopeful and really loves everyone that is around him. And then we have his sister Jessica, who is Kim Young. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. She's the daughter of the Kim family, and she's really cool, calm, and collective. And she's extremely talented in her artistry, but because of their lack of funds, she is not really able to excel in any other lessons or any other aspect in the art world. Then on the Park side, we have Dae.
Yes.
Sorry.
The Park's daughter.
Yeah, the Park's daughter. She's pretty much like a teenager. I think she's like
I think she's 16.
16.
Yeah.
And her only worries in life is to have a boyfriend and to excel in schoolwork. She falls for Kevin, who ends up being her replacement tutor, and she falls for him just as any other teenage girl would, any older guy who like pays attention to them. But she ultimately ends up saving his life, so it could be true. Could be true love. And then we have that song, who is the little kid brother. He's kind of like an artsy fartsy kid, and he has a rambunctious attitude, and he's kind of the center of the attention from the Parks, mainly because of his age. He's really young. His gender status. He's the main boy who's going to take over the Park name, and also he has had past traumas that kind of makes them a little overprotective of him.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And
there's
then
a couple of other characters. Those are the two families.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a couple of other kind of main characters. So
yeah, and then also along with the Parks, they have a housekeeper. I believe her name is Meng Yuang, and she's the longtime housekeeper. So she had been the housekeeper before the Parks even lived there, and she takes a lot of pride in her position, and she really, really loves the house. She comes off as really nice, but can quickly turn when it comes to her advantage. And then we have, this one's the hardest one. Yoon Se, who is her husband, the housekeeper's husband, and he's literally a leech of a human being. This man becomes so comfortable with living and hiding in the basement of the Parks' home. He is provided for by his wife and kind of the Parks' scraps, and he does become violent when those two become threatened.
Yeah, that's a very, very good way to put it. Yeah, so with that, kind of a lot of characters. How did we each like the film? How did you like it overall?
So the first time I liked it, I thought it was...
The first time you liked it?
No, sorry. The first time I watched it, I thought it was one of the best movies I've ever seen, like both in enjoyment and in overall cinematography. I just felt like it was fantastic, and I still feel that way to this day.
Yeah, I mean, it is obvious that it's just such a masterpiece of a cinematic artwork. It's so, everything is just so crisp and
it's so beautiful.
Yeah, such a beautiful movie. Every frame has such attention to detail, and yeah, it's story-wise, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
and yeah, it's a great movie. It's one of my favorites. Right. Yeah, let's get into our interpretations.
Okay.
Can I?
Yeah, go
can
first.
I kind of go first? So, obviously, it has to do with class between these two families. The Kims live in poverty. The Parks are very wealthy. So, of course, in this movie centered around class inequality and wealth inequality, we have like the motif of smell that runs throughout. Mm-hmm. The Kims have this smell to them that they can't escape, and that gets brought up so many times throughout the movie.
Right.
Then along with the title of the movie, Parasite, it's like, certainly Parasite applies to the Kims. Right. They're leeching off the Park's wealth, but in rewatching it, it really becomes evident how much the Parks also, there is a symbiotic relationship between the two families. They're both leeching off of each other in a way. Specifically, they get the old housekeeper, fired or terminated, and the Parks need a new housekeeper. And the scene in which Mr. Kim gives Mr. Park the card for the care to get a new housekeeper. He mentions the house without a housekeeper, the house will just be a mess.
Right.
within a week.
Right.
And I think he said it's like it'll start to smell. I think he said something
Oh,
like that.
he did. Yeah. It's almost like how elephants have like birds who live off of them who just eat all the little bugs that live.
Yeah, exactly.
If they didn't have the birds, they'd just be covered with bugs.
Yeah, so the parks need the Kims just as much as the Kims need the parks, just in a different way. So I thought that was interesting. The title really does have a double meaning in that regard. But yeah. What about you for an interpretation here?
Yeah, I also believe that classism is definitely a heavy theme throughout this film. While I do understand your interpretation of the Parasite, I did also feel like it goes into how being rich is kind of a game of inheritance and luck, because all of the parks are like extremely talented, and they have what it takes to like be a wealthy family or like to make money. But I feel because they already are in poverty, it's really hard to dig your way out.
Interesting.
So it's like I'm not sure what the lifestyle of the parks are before the film. Like I'm pretty sure that they were all born wealthy, thus they are still wealthy.
Yeah, I especially get that impression from the Mrs. Kim.
From Mrs. Park.
Oh, Mrs. Park. Yeah, she just seems like she has never known any other life.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know.
And I mean, they're also setting up their daughter to be like that as well, like where she doesn't have to think about anything else except getting straight A's in school, because I mean she's gonna be set for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
And so I did feel like there's that. Also, there was a very like different take on family, I felt like, in this film. I'm not too sure about relationships in Korea and how being a family looks like. But I can only compare what it looks like here in America, and it's like I felt like a lot of the two families felt like there was not a lack of love, but almost like there was no like, oh, you're my daughter, I love you, like overt like lovey-doveyness. It was a lot of like, we're a family and we have to stick together.
Yeah. Not a lot of warmth, I guess.
That's what I'm
between them. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Was there any specific scene that you wanted to draw attention to?
So the specific scene that kind of sealed my rating of this overall film is there's a scene where they're in the lunchroom or in a driver's cafeteria, where it's like a treat that the kids are giving to their family, and it was almost like that is where they shifted in, like where the parents are now kind of leeching off their kids.
In like the provider role?
Yeah, in the provider roles.
Okay.
I think up to that point, they've always like did work together to kind of provide for each other. But I think at this moment in time that they had shifted where the kids are now the primary caretakers of the household.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. All right. So, we're going to get into some heavy aspects here in a few minutes. Before we do, let's start with kind of how this fits into Bong Joon Ho's work, because his vision is very clear in this film. He's done some stuff that I haven't seen. Barking Dogs Never Bite in 2000 was kind of his first bigger hit. He has done The Host, which is funny because it's like the opposite of Parasite. But I don't know what that movie's about necessarily. And then Snowpiercer is probably like his most well-known. It's like his first American or English language film, I suppose.
I think we started watching that one.
Yeah, I think it just wasn't what we wanted to watch at the time. It
did not fit the mood.
Yeah, it's got some similar themes. And then there's the movie Okja, I believe is how it's pronounced, from 2017.
The pig.
Yeah. And then currently he's working on a Snowpiercer TV show, which is in its third season, apparently. I have never seen it. I think it'd be very interesting to watch.
Watch the movie first.
yeah. We have to finish the movie first. But, I mean, Parasite definitely makes me want to watch maybe all of his movies.
Right.
I know he definitely has these themes kind of running throughout his films.
Yeah.
Between class and wealth inequality and stuff like that. I thought it was interesting that he listed some movies as his biggest influences back in 2012. Of them, the ones that really stand out to me are Fargo by the Coen brothers, Psycho by Alfred Hitchcock, and then Raging Bull from 1980 with Robert De Niro. I can kind of see influences from all three of those in this film. Especially Fargo is like, there's some crazy stuff happening, but it is hilarious at the same time.
Yeah, I want to say this movie is really, really funny.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's a comedy, but I definitely think that because of how almost not parody of a wealthy family, but almost it does stem off of some stereotypes of like wealthy people. Yeah. I definitely feel like it took that and kind of helped create its own comedy.
Okay. All right. Yeah, but anyway, I think we're gonna watch Snowpiercer in
yeah, pretty soon.
Yeah, pretty soon. We're gonna watch the whole thing. But yeah, if you've seen any of those, let us know what you think of them and if we should watch those as well. Yeah. So with that, let's get into the things that really stood out in this movie.
Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go?
You go first.
All right. So things that really stood out to me. First of all, just the city architecture is so good. Like all the scenes where you could see like the buildings, and then the scene where it's like flooding, and you see those giant staircases. Like to me, it reminds me a lot of like Mexico in that sort of sense. I mean, I don't think it's the same architecture, but it's definitely like with the big hills and the houses stacking. I felt like I definitely like it reminded me going back to like my like parents' villages and stuff like that, and seeing all the crammed houses and the crammed buildings. And I thought that was really interesting. I also like love the colors that they showed. I think a lot of the scenes were at night, so you saw a lot of like neon colors coming off and then just bouncing off all the buildings.
Yeah, the lighting is very very vibrant. The Kims, of course, live in this semi-basement is what their dwelling is called, I think.
Right.
It's like they have windows that are right at ground level, right at the end of the street. And of course with the staircase scene, I don't know what else to call it, but that's when they escape the Parks house kind of halfway through the film, and they just descend into the slums,
right?
But they just keep going, and they go forever down steps, and they finally.
Oh man, I don't think Mr. Park or Mr. Kim has any shoes on this whole time too.
I'm gonna get there in a second.
Alright. But yeah, so definitely for sure the cinematography, like of the city, even of the house. Like this house is top-notch house, and I feel like every film that we've talked about so far has had a house that's just, you know, the dream house. And let me tell you, this is that dream house.
Yeah, so this the house in the film it's like the personal design of a famous architect.
Yeah.
However, all of that's fictional. The house.
You
want to hear some crazy facts? The house itself is on a set. It's a fake house.
It's fake?
And the second story doesn't even exist. It's all green screened from the outside.
Wow.
They built a set. But
oh my god.
I found a picture. I'm gonna put it right.
Is the Ladybird
I'm
house
gonna put it right here. But yeah, I mean the house itself, you know, a set, whatever, is just such.
Yeah, I think there's a scene where Kevin arrives to the house for the first time, and he's just mesmerized by the yard by itself.
Yeah, I mean,
and the housekeeper calls him inside. He's like, "Oh, it's so beautiful out here," and she's like, "Well, It's beautiful in here too. And that is correct. It is a beautiful design, even though it's not real. So
Yeah. Okay, so of course, in the house there is a secret basement or like bunker.
Yeah, it's a bunker. I think
that
they have a basement and then they have a bunker.
That is true. There's a bunker in the basement that you have to move a bookshelf and then go down into the bunker itself. Very similar to
Fallout.
Well,
but yeah.
but you just continue to descend in the house to get down there as well. Yeah. Did you want to say anything specific about the housekeeper's husband who lives down there?
Yeah. So like I said, he is so the housekeeper's husband is living in the bunker basement of the Parks' home because he is he's hiding from loan sharks who he owes a lot of money to. And so his wife became the housekeeper of this house and was like, hey, nobody knows about this space down here, so you could just live down here. And he is literally just like comfortable eating, canned beans, in this dark, damp bunker by himself for the rest of his life because he feels like he's living the life underneath the Parks. Essentially he feels as though Mr. Park himself is like almost his god, like some sort of deity that provides for him.
Yeah, he said he's a literal leech.
Literal leech.
Yeah, he really is. I kept wondering why they made him just so creepy.
Yeah.
He was like unnecessarily creepy, but I kind of think it's like in reference to like Korean horror films. He has been seen by what's the son's name?
Daesung.
Yeah, Daesung has seen him and thought he was a ghost.
Oh yeah.
And they referred to him as a ghost, even though they don't know that he's actually a human being living in this unseen recess of their house. But I think that's just an allusion to like Korean horror films. To make him just so.
I mean,
creepy.
It also goes to know, like, I don't know how long he is down there, but, at a certain point, like, he's not getting any sunlight. He's not eating as well as he should, I think. And so, it kind of deteriorates your body just to be so isolated and,
I think
out
he's
from
been
the
down
world
there for a few years.
Yeah, and so I can kind of understand now why he was so creepy. I didn't understand it so much the first time. I just felt like it did feel kind of like a stupid twist the first time that I watched it, even though I still really enjoyed it. But the more I watched it, the more I felt like I understood his character. Also, subtitles help. So,
well, they have subtitles in the theater.
Well, yeah, but it's different when I can pause it and watch it,
fair enough.
or rewatch and know what they're saying. So another aspect that I really enjoyed, this is a small little thing. I just really loved the relationship that Daesung had with Jessica. Like I said, he's like, one of those like wild kids that's just always running around, throwing his toys around. And so to Mrs. Park, he felt like he was almost like a little uncontrollable. Like she put him in the Boy Scouts to kind of like instill is the word. Yes. Instill like formality to him almost. But it only made it worse. Tame him down. But it kind of just made him worse. And so when they bring on Jessica as his art therapy teacher, she's like, the mom is like, oh, I just want to see how you work with him and make sure that you are like okay. And Jessica's like, no, you can be out of the room or else I'm not going to do it. And she's like, okay. And then you just see Daesung just sit in his chair properly and it's like, Jessica's like, okay, you can leave us now. And he just like, walks off like, like he knows how to take orders, which is something new to Mrs. Park because he's always been like just a kid who just does whatever he wants.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. Like, not only did it have like one lives in poverty and one lives in wealth, but like one family seems to like really have a good idea of like social cues. And Jessica's probably the best at
Right.
that. So
Jessica's so cool.
Yeah, she kind of like reads both Mrs. Park and Daesung like immediately,
Right.
and just I don't know, like runs with her interpretation of how to come across to these two members of the family, I guess.
Yeah. Honestly, I was talking to Ryan a little bit about it earlier, but like I felt like everyone in the Kim family is like has a like fend for yourself attitude almost. But because they are all family, they feel like a little bit obligated to stay with each other. And I mean, I do feel like they do love each other, but it's not like I said, over or anything. I do feel like the mom and Jessica would have the best chance like fending for themselves because they're both really like hard and tough and like kind of specifically Jessica, she's so collected and calculating. Like she knows how to get in and out of situations really easily. Like it's so effortless. And even her brother too, Kevin, said himself in the film, like, I feel like you're the only one who fits in this wealthy lifestyle.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
And so
I keep saying interesting. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's so many details to this
there's
movie.
so many like tiny things that you see and hear each time that you watch it, so it's definitely
when you were talking, that made me think of the scene where she's getting a ride home. It's from her first like interview day. Getting a ride home from the parks by their previous driver, Yoon. Is that his name?
I think his name is Yoon.
Yeah, we only see him very briefly in this one ride, really, but he's basically like hitting on her.
Yeah.
And she just like is
Instead,
super smooth at just like avoiding that.
Yeah. And like not only does she like quickly calculate how to divert his attention to be like, hey, because he's like, oh, let me drive you to your house. And she's like, no, you can drop me off at the station. He's like, well, it's so dark. Something's gonna happen to you. She's like, dude, leave me alone. I'm gonna meet my boyfriend at the station.
Yeah.
But then, while also doing that, she like calculates a plan to get him fired to get her dad hired as the new driver.
Yeah.
So she's just so freaking cool.
Like as soon as he starts talking to her, she recognizes this weakness that she can exploit in him. It's
the same thing, with the mom. She realized Mrs. Park's weakness of like naivety, that she was able to use a painting or a picture that Daesung had created that her mom is like so in love with, and that she framed it and put it like in the family mantle or whatever. And she's like, oh, you see this corner right here? That's the trauma corner. And then the mom is like, how do you know about trauma? It's like the same way that psychics like get to you. Like you slowly reveal things about yourself that you don't even know that you're actually revealing. And she's just like picking it up, putting it out, and just making that cash.
Yeah. Characters are just so good.
Yeah. I do also kind of just want to pick up on Daesung's love for Native Americans. I do think that kind of matches like his mom's affinity for buying American products. Like she's always like, or like foreign products, because too they like only drink Voss water.
Yeah.
Like and then I feel like there will be close-ups of like American brands, or she'll say like, oh, I bought that in America. It should work perfectly or something like that.
Yeah, they mentioned that when Daesung is putting up the tent.
And so it's almost like, it goes into the naivety too. Like Daesung doesn't really know what the character of a Native American is that he's playing, and so like he's like obsessed of the American version of what Native Americans are. Yeah. And he is willing to like almost cosplay that. I mean, because he's a child, he doesn't know.
Yeah, it's definitely definitely works in with the naivete.
Right.
It's that's the way to say it. Anyway, yeah, it's like it's just this like superficial understanding of Native Americans based on like tomahawks and
Right.
and
Like feather headdresses and stuff like that.
headdresses and stuff and teepees. And,
Right.
like, that's it. There's no like true cultural understanding. It doesn't go any deeper than that.
Right.
Yeah. Is that it for your aspects? I can.
I do have some more, but you can talk
Okay. All right.
about something.
So we did mention briefly the comedy in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I do see it. I see it as a dark comedy.
Okay. Yeah.
Like it definitely, once it takes the twist, there is not so much of a focus on the comedy, but at the same time, it's not like
it transcends a lot of genres.
Yeah,
I feel
the twist is not. It's not like sinister enough that you need comedic relief,
right?
Either. But then there's so many like small things. So when what's his name? Oh, Kevin.
Kevin.
When Kevin gets the opportunity to go tutor the park daughter, Min is his friend, his college friend who
was tutoring Dae. Yeah.
Yes.
Dae.
Yes. Min was the tutor. He goes and gifts the Kims this stone. It's called a scholar's stone. A scholar's rock.
Oh, a scholar's rock.
Yeah. And
this one specifically brings like wealth to a family.
Yeah. It's supposed to bring you wealth.
Right.
Anyway, Kevin is like, well, why would you want me to tutor Dae? Yeah. Why would you want me to tutor when you have all these like college friends? And he's like, Min is like, because I don't want any of these
like frat boy scumbags.
Yeah, frat boys to be hitting on this girl, and he says it's revolting, and then he spits, and this is just hilarious.
Yeah.
Also, the scene where the guy is like peeing outside of their house, outside of their or semi basement house, and Kevin grabs the scholar's rock to go attack the guy who's like peeing right outside their house. They're like, no, take the water or whatever. So he goes and gets the water, and then Mr. Kim follows behind him with this big bucket of water. And it's just, you see it in slow motion because Jessica is filming it.
Right.
And Mr. Kim starts to dump out this water on the guy who is peeing, but the guy who is peeing just moves out of the way, and like it hits Kevin.
Yeah, so it's like nobody is winning here.
Yeah, like that
except the guy who's peeing, I guess.
I mean, there's nothing except just incredible comedy in that moment. All right,
I do have 3 things I want to piggy off of, but keep going.
Yeah, and then once Chung Sook, their mother, gets the new housekeeper position, you see Mr. Kim bring in a bunch of boxes with Mr. Park.
Goes and grabs her butt.
And he like grabs her ass like with nobody looking, and like those are just such good, intimate, funny moments.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so 3 things I want to touch. One, I do like Min as the introduction to the Park family, but I do hate that he is never really mentioned, or like he is mentioned, but he's never brought up again. At least like I would have had at least like a phone call. Like he didn't even have to shoot anything. He just needed to call Kevin to like, be like, hey, how's my girl? And be like, oh, she's fine, even though he's like stealing him right under his nose.
Yeah.
Or stealing her right under his nose and stuff like that. I wish there was just some callback to Min, just to like kind of justify his character even being introduced into this film.
Yeah.
2, I have a hard time believing how fast their cameras are to film things, because I mean, I don't know, they're poor, so I wouldn't assume that they have like the best phones. So my phone takes 5 seconds to one, load the camera app, two, to flip it around if it's not in the right corner, and then like another second to like actually film it.
Okay,
So that is something I personally don't like. I understand it's a film, but it just, you know, it kind of pulls me out a little bit.
Oh, okay. I didn't have an issue with that at all.
And then what's the other one? So you had men. Oh, in The Rock. There is a scene where Kevin is going to his first interview, and the mom is seen washing The Rock and saying, "Please give my son good luck because he's going to his first interview," or something like that.
Oh,
like she's
cool.
literally like kind of not praying, but like asking for something from The Rock.
Yeah, I saw that she was washing it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that you had noticed that too. I was gonna bring that up next because there's so many like little details that really help kind of build this world and this story. This works in with comedy as well. So the Parks are out for Dasong's birthday. They're gonna go on this camping trip. They leave the house, and all of the Kims are there relaxing as though it is their house. And Jessica's on the couch, and they're having like this snack feast, and they're drinking, and like, you know, having a good old time. And Jessica is eating these like beef jerky things, but they're for the dogs.
Yeah, they're like dog treats.
Yeah, it's like kangaroo jerky. And she's like, "What is this?" And like, it's just like one of those. It's never mentioned by any of the characters, but it is some of the dog treats that Mrs. Park pointed out.
Yeah. They have 3 dogs.
Yeah.
They have Fufu, Zumi, and one more that I cannot remember.
I don't know. The dogs, I don't know what function they serve besides just some cuteness every once in a while.
Yeah, I guess. Oh yeah, because he's like. Alright. Okay, I have one last thing before I want to get into the big scene that I want to talk about.
Okay.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about before the big scene? No? Okay, so the last thing that I want to talk before we talk about something that really bothered us is that like I said previously, I am pretty much really loving these fatherly love themes. Mr. Park seems pretty much like cold towards, not cold, but indifferent towards everyone except for his son, who he has like almost like a deep joy and connection to. When they see each other, like they sound like goes to run to him, and I think that's so cute. Like I don't think that he like loves his wife, which he mentioned to Mr. Kim. You know, it's like, yes, we'll call this love. You know, like it's not really love, but he does like love his son, and when he goes outside to like you know, pitch a tent because he doesn't want to be in the house because of trauma or whatever. He like goes, and instead of sleeping in his bed, he like sleeps on the couch to watch his son. For his birthday, he like dresses up as an Indian to attack Jessica, so his son could be like the hero Indian or whatever. Which I don't know, like to me, it probably wouldn't have been something he would have done if he didn't love his son. Like I don't think he would have done something like that for Dae. You know, I do think it's only something he would do for Dae-sung because he just loves him so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I could totally see that. Yeah, when there's a scene, I'm not sure when it is, maybe it's Jessica's first day or whatever, but she's in there tutoring him, and then Mr. Park gets home, and that song like jumps up and like runs downstairs to come greet his dad, and you definitely don't see that with anyone else, really, like that kind of warmth, I guess. Yeah. Okay. All right. So
the big guns.
All right. So we've mentioned some little details. I've mentioned specifically like all the attention to detail in every scene. So there is an issue with all the attention to detail, because when you're that precise with everything, anything any tiny thing
that you miss. Just kind of. It's like when you have a shirt and you have one pulled thread. It's like you can just you can see it. Like,
yeah,
you know,
it stands out.
Yeah, it stands out.
All right. Do you want to start? Do you want to get into it?
All right. So let's describe the scene. So the scene is when the Parks have gone out camping for Daesung's birthday, and then the Kims kind of just take over the house, have their snack fest. They're all in the living room, and if you have not seen the house, like, it's just a big window, and you just see the yard, and it's so beautiful.
The living room.
The living room. And then, so it has like a couch, the table, the big window, then the yard.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're all hanging out on the couch, eating snacks, drinking, alcohol. And at some point, they like spill the snacks, and Mr. Kim gets mad that Mrs. Kim calls him a cockroach, and he like throws everything off the table. It's like, how dare you? And then they like laugh it off or whatever because it was silly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're also like kind of like bragging about their how swiftly they have infiltrated the Parks.
Yeah.
The Parks' lives, and Mr. Kim is trying to be like, oh, I can act too. I'm not, I am a driver, and I go by Mr. Kim, which is my actual name, but I can act too. That's what he's doing.
Oh, okay. Anyways, they're just making a mess, which is fine. But then...
And then the old housekeeper shows up.
Oh, yeah. Then the old housekeeper shows up. We go downstairs. We meet her husband.
We have the whole twist happens. Yeah. And it's really
they bring them back upstairs. The Kims are being held hostage.
Yes.
The wife, the housekeeper and her husband are, like, now on the couch and, like, threatening to send a video to the Parks to expose them or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then they fight for the phone that has the video, and then they're just creating a way bigger mess than they had. And then they get a phone call.
They get a phone call.
The Parks are coming back home.
They have 8 minutes.
They have 8 minutes to clean up this mess. And there's just stuff all over the floor. Glass, like tiny glass pieces are all over the floor. Tiny snacks. Alcohol is on the floor. And they're cleaning it up. The mom...
she has to make some rondom.
So, what's her name?
Chang-soo?
Yeah, Chang-soo. She's making rondom because that's what Mrs. Park asked for by the time that they get there. The father, Mr. Kim, is dragging the body.
Mr. Kim and Kevin are both
dragging the housekeeper and her husband's bodies down to the bunker. And only Jessica is the one left to clean up the mess that's on the floor. And she has a big trash bag and she's trying to put everything in. But
showing her like sweep stuff with her arms into this trash bag and onto the floor, under this table, and onto the floor under the couch. And there's glass. There's like broken glass. She even like cuts herself on something and like looks at her hand or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like that is attention is drawn to that.
Right.
Then
the Parks come home.
Yes.
And they're going up the stairs, and Jessica, the first thing you see when you come up the stairs is the living room. So Jessica goes straight under the table, which it's like one of those minimalistic houses.
Yeah,
there's very little, and it has like wood floor, so it's like, I feel like anything that you would see on the floor, you would see it, Yeah,
but it's late at night. They're distracted. Daesung comes in first. He has headphones on.
Yeah, he's like mad because it's raining and it's his birthday. He doesn't want to be in the house because of trauma.
Yeah. But they're just marching up the steps, going up to their rooms. They're not really paying attention, so that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But then we...
When they go upstairs, that's when the rest of the family hides under the table because Daesung comes running down to the living room outside to the yard to pitch his tent.
Yeah. Long story short, both Kevin and Mr. Kim meet in the living room. They get under the table. because they have to, because right before they can make their escape, that's when Daesung comes down with his tent.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, he's holding his tent like up
Oh,
here,
yeah, he's
and
like,
he can't see
"Hut
anything on
one,
this
hut
side.
two." He's so cute, dude. He's like being his cute little Boy Scout self.
Yeah. So they slide back under the table with all this stuff, right?
Glass.
All glass. And then the rest of the parks comes down.
Yeah, so both Mr. Park and Mrs. Park calm down because, they're like worried for Daesung, and then they're like, oh, well, then let's just sleep in the living room. So they're sleeping on the couch, and there is a scene before that where Dae comes downstairs and she sits on the table, and you can clearly see the couch behind her and how there's nothing under there, even though a few seconds ago we saw that that's where Jessica put all the stuff. And like, we had a roommate who was like, oh, they just don't want to bore you with how they cleaned up the house. It's like, no, that's part of it. Like, I want to see them like hurriedly clean up this house.
Yeah, when the Parks decide to sleep on the couch, the Mrs. Park walks to if you're looking at it, to the left side of the couch,
right,
to turn off a light, and that's where the bulk of the mess was, because that's where Mr. Kim had like knocked everything.
Yeah,
like there has to be something there, and there's nothing to obstruct the view in that scene, so there's no way that Mrs. Park could have missed everything. I mean, she's naive.
And then
but she's not blind.
Both Mr. and Mrs. Park are like walking around their house with no like shoes. They're barefoot. So I would assume like something would get stuck to their foot, if not like a tiny crumb or like a piece of glass or something. And so they're sleeping.
Nothing else. It would be sticky or something.
Or it would smell like alcohol, which Mr. Park himself, like they're sleeping on the couch, he mentions the smell of Mr. Kim, which is like, well, if you can smell Mr. Kim, you can obviously smell the alcohol that they've been drinking in the house that's spilled on the floor.
Well, maybe he's not allergic to the smell of the alcohol. He's allergic to the smell of Mr. Kim.
I don't know, man.
That's a stretch.
So,
So yeah, there is just a vast attention to detail in the same scene in which Jessica is hiding underneath the table. The first three Parks, Daesung, Dae, and Mrs. Park all walk up the stairs, and there's these three light bulbs that go up the stairs with them, and the housekeeper's husband, he's the one who turned on the lights as Mr. Park goes up the steps every day when he gets home from work.
Mm-hmm.
He is being detained in the basement when they come up the steps by Mr. Kim. So the lights don't go on. You see the lights not go on when they walk up the steps. But by the time Mr. Park himself comes up the steps, Mr. Kim is trying to bring the body of the limp body of the housekeeper down the steps or further into the cellar down there, and her husband is tied up, but he uses his head to
like ram the buttons,
to hit the buttons, and so Jessica's under the table at that time, and the lights go on. Like, if you're gonna have that much attention to detail, then you also have to have the attention to detail for where all the crumbs and all the mess went,
like
in that same moment.
Yeah, I just wish there was like maybe a scene where Chung-soo was like very quietly trying to like sweep up under the couch or something while they were sleeping, but there just isn't. And I mean, it's kind of it's kind of sad to see so much attention to detail and then just have that giant chunk of like tiny things like crumbs and glass and alcohol and stuff just not being brought back to the story, like to clean up or even mentioned at all.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna make a mess, it can't just disappear.
At least not in 8 minutes.
Immediately following this scene, I saw another lack of attention to detail.
Okay.
So the three Kims, Kevin, Jessica, and Mr. Kim, are all underneath the table. They finally have enough of a break to sneak out from under the table. They're all barefooted, and they go down the steps that lead out into the garage and out from the garage. Once you see them again in the garage, they all have shoes on. And that's when they run out in the rain and make their descent down into the slums where they live. Of course, there's this wonderful scene of them descending on these steps. But even in that scene, there's a brief moment where Kevin stops and looks down, and you see him look at his shoes, like there's
like rained on, like
flooded. His shoes are like submerged in water at this point. So there is attention drawn to the shoes themselves. So between the time that they got out from underneath the table to the time they got outside, they would have had to put on shoes, which is fine. I can buy that. But they took the same route to get out of the house that the Parks took to get into the house. So their shoes have to be somewhere on that route. Which, how oblivious are the Kims supposed to be?
Right.
I don't know.
I mean, I'm a little bit more familiar with Japanese culture. Like, they have a specific place where they put their shoes before they enter their house. So I would assume the Koreans have almost a similar aspect to where they like take off their shoes.
Well, they have house slippers. Like, you even see Mr. Park when he goes out to attend to Dasung in the tent. He takes off his house slippers right there by the back door.
Right.
Like, okay, but his shoes are probably down there close to the garage.
Right.
With all of the Kim shoes.
Right. It's like they may be poor, but they have they know basic manners, you know.
Yeah. This time around, I was like, wow, I can't believe, because one of the great sound effects that you hear in the movie is them like running around quietly, barefooted on this hardwood floor. So I'm like, wow, did they run down all those steps that far barefooted? And then when I saw it again, I was like, no, they have shoes on. But they definitely didn't have shoes on a minute ago.
Right.
Anyway, that's another little thing that I saw that kind of bothered me.
Well, dang, yeah. I guess I did notice that, but I guess I didn't connect the two together. There was another thing, too, with the living room and the big window. You can clearly see the living room from the outside. Like, you can see under the table. You can see the couch. And I feel like, they should have been able to see stuff when they were going back in. Yeah,
I mean, it's whatever.
Whatever. We've talked about it. We've said what we said about it. Overall,
in a meticulously well-made film, those are a couple of flaws that really stand out.
Yeah.
And now I can't watch the movie without seeing those.
Yeah, I feel like now every time I watch the movie, I try to find other things I want to that aren't as meticulous, Yeah. I feel like.
Can I elaborate a little bit? So, so to try to convince myself that it's not such a big deal that there's these flaws. Throughout the movie, there's also this appreciation of art. We see it with Dasung and Jessica, especially. Even though we learned from Jessica that she just Googled art therapy and kind of was just running with it.
Right.
She doesn't believe in it. But the Parks definitely have an appreciation for art. They live in this piece of art, which is this house. It was designed by an architect who lived there. In the scene where they are being held hostage, which is a very unique scene in and of itself, because the housekeeper and her husband are on the couch and they start kind of reminiscing about how they appreciate the house itself. And the husband breaks the fourth wall twice.
Right.
at the beginning of the scene, at the end of the scene,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of interesting. Anyway, the notion of art appreciation seems to be connected to class as well.
Okay.
So the Kims seem to kind of be oblivious to this art.
Mm-hmm.
They recognize that the house itself is beautiful,
Right.
but they don't appreciate the house the same way that the housekeeper and her husband do.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't appreciate the house in the same way that the Parks do.
Right.
We can see that with the mess that they've made, for one.
Mm-hmm.
And while they're making this big mess, before they're held hostage, sorry to be jumping around so much, they start talking about whether the Parks are rich but also nice, or if they're nice because they are rich.
Right.
And they specifically mention that money acts as an iron, like a clothes iron. It irons out all the creases.
Mm-hmm.
And connecting money or wealth with art, and with this film specifically, it's so rich with like pristine attention to detail,
right,
that maybe it's like, look, I can not clean up this mess in the living room, and then I'll show you this amazing scene of them running down these stairs forever,
right,
as a way of ironing out these creases. I don't know.
No.
That's kind of where I was going
No.
with it. But yeah, I did think that when they're fighting for the phone, right before they get the phone call, it looks just like a broke painting.
Right, and then they have like Ave Maria like playing, and so
yeah.
What is that? The golden rule kind of thing going on, but on its side, so they're all going on one side.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, I do feel like there is also like the theme of like art and its own appreciation. Like we mentioned it before. Both of the Kim kids are so super smart and talented. Kevin's downfall is that he is not able to perform well in exams, but he is so good at like staying on top of his studies and knowing the material. But I guess he just gets nervous during exams that he just can't seem to pass it. So it's not even an obstacle of like being able to pay for it at this point. It's being able to get in because he's so nervous that he can't finish the exam. But with Jessica, I just mentioned that like she is just not able to pay for like art lessons anymore, so she just doesn't bother with it. Like she could continue to do art, but because like it's like the money that's stopping her from actually continuing art. Because she feels like she has to provide for her family, and she just can't seem to pay for the lessons that come with it. Yeah,
she forges the certification for Kevin to go to his interview at the Parks, and Mr. Kim is like, "Oh, does Oxford
have a major?"
Yeah, have a major in like document forgery. Like he doesn't even see the art in the forgery itself. He sees like the practical, the practicality of the forgery rather than the art.
Right.
Anyway, all right. So, we good on aspects?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I feel like I could just talk about this movie forever.
Yeah, it's honestly so good. I'm sure if we wanted to, we could talk about it for another hour.
There's so much stuff. There's like, Morse code. There's the beginning and the ending scenes. I
do a little bit want to talk about the ending scene, how the very ending where so his father is like stuck in the basement because he killed Mr. Park, and he's hiding. He now becomes like the husband.
The housekeeper's husband. That's what we're going to call him.
That guy, he was hiding in the bunker because he was hiding from loan sharks. But now Mr. Kim is hiding in the bunker because he's hiding from the police.
Yeah.
And he learns Morse code the same way that the housekeeper husband learns Morse code, but instead of to send a message to Mr. Kim or Mr. Park, he's sending a message to Kevin to be like, hey, son, I'm still alive. I'm just chilling down here, doing what I can to like keep myself motivated to stay alive and stuff like that. And we see Kevin write a letter to his father like, hey, I'm going to make a lot of money and buy the house and so you can get out. And it shows like a scene of like a future Kevin, you know, his haircut is different. He looks more posh.
He's got like a suit on,
right.
Very professional.
He's being shown around by a realtor in the house or whatever. And then you see it and it like kind of fades and you're like, oh, he made it. Like he's rich now and now Mr. Kim can survive. But it's just like a dream. And he's like, yeah, one day it'll happen. But it's like, there's...
Yeah, it cuts to like the sock chandelier that they have in
Yeah.
the windows again. And it's the same, visually it's the same as the opening scene. With the sock chandelier in the windows.
Right. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying. Like, I feel like somebody like Kevin can aspire to become rich, but I think no matter his circumstance, he will just never make the amount of money that he needs to make to own that house.
Yeah. I specifically the term plan is used throughout the movie. It's mentioned specifically when after they reach a certain point descending the stairs, they're like, okay, what do we do about the housekeeper and her husband in the cellar down here? Like yeah, what's the plan?
Like their whole plan has been let's work for the Parks.
Let's infiltrate the Parks house.
Yeah, and see where it goes from there. Like they're very wealthy and they're paying us good amount of money. Like they might get out of their basement just working for the Parks. Like yes, they were conning them at the beginning, but at this point, it's like, it's an honest living or whatever.
Right.
Versus, like...
They're doing a good job.
Right.
At what they've been hired to do.
So that was their plan. And then, they get sidetracked by this housekeeper and her creepy husband. And then they're like, well, now what do we do? What's the plan? And then that's where we see Mr. Kim's nihilistic personality come back because his like whole hope that Kevin instilled in him has shattered because he's like, well, now we can't do what we want to do. So it's like, this is why I never make plans because now I'm disappointed. Now I have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
It's just better to have no plan, so I'm not disappointed.
It's interesting. I wonder if there's anything that is kind of, Mr. Kim being older. I wonder if it's just his experience from having a plan and then it falling through that now has this nihilist perspective.
Right.
Versus Kevin, who's younger.
Right.
Much more ambitious, who seems to need a plan in order to motivate himself.
Right. You just can't wing it like Jessica can.
Yeah. So, we could go on and on talking about this movie, but we need to get to our ratings. So, let's go ahead and do that. You got yours? Here, I'll go first.
Okay.
So, obviously, this movie is a masterpiece. It is such a good time. I love watching this movie because there's so many little things to pay attention to, and the plot is so good. Like the story is just so
it's
good.
It's really original.
That being said, it does have those flaws that I cannot look past. I just can't not see it. So for that reason, I do knock it just a little bit, and I have to give it a 9.7. So it's right up there with There Will Be Blood. Very high. Very good rating, but it's not a perfect 10 for me.
I will also say it's not a perfect 10 for me. I do give it 10s across the board, except for plot. And we definitely talked about that. The same thing, I just can't unsee what we talked about. So I did give it a 9 in that aspect, just because it's just so great of a film. Like, yeah, it sucks that, a big detail was kind of like skipped over, but everything else is fantastic. So mine is 9. 9.9 out of 10.
I got a 9.7. You got a 9.9 out of 10. All right, good. So what is your one favorite thing about watching this movie?
So my one favorite thing about this movie is that there's like a scene where, again, the fatherly love between Mr. Park and Dae-sung. They do this cute thing where they're talking over the walkie-talkies, and they're like, "I can't sleep. Over." He's like, "Well, come inside. Over." And it's just so cute, and I love it. It gets me every single time.
Yeah, that's definitely your favorite part.
Yeah. What's your favorite part?
I want to say that's my favorite part, but I'll choose something different. But I really, in the same scene, I love the tent.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically Dae-sung like coming down the stairs with his tent, and then it's so cool. It's like a teepee, and he goes outside in this downpour, and he's like inside the tent as he's setting it up. And I go camping. I think I need something like that, because it takes this little kid like 5 seconds to put this tent up. And yeah, the thing's super cool looking.
Yeah, I guess our favorite thing about this whole film is Dae-sung. But yeah, so that just wraps it up. Right? Oh shit! No. All right. So we do have a couple movies that we want to talk about for the next film that you guys can choose from. The first movie is City of God by Fernando Meirelles and Katja Lund, we believe. This is a film I haven't seen, but Ryan has seen a long time ago.
Yeah, it came out in 2002. I haven't seen it
Since.
at least since like 2006, maybe. It's probably been 10, 15 years. But from my memory, it is one of the best movies that I've ever seen. So I can't wait to rewatch it.
Our second film is going to be Roma by Alfonso Cuarón, who also did Y Tu Mamá También, which we did not review. But it is so good. If you haven't seen it, it is on Netflix. It's a Netflix original, so go ahead and take a stab at it. If you just go ahead and watch it. And then the third movie is going to be Shoplifters, who is by Hirokazu Koreeda. Yeah. This was both Roma and Shoplifters were released in 2018. And Shoplifters is a Korean film where Roma... Japanese. Japanese, my bad.
Mm-hmm.
So City of God is a Brazilian film. Mm-hmm. Roma is a Mexican film, and Shoplifters is a Japanese film. So these are all foreign movies that also deal with poverty and classism.
Yeah.
And they're all really good, and we're really excited to watch each and any of these. So go ahead and vote on our Instagram, on our Twitter, or in the comments down below. And that being said, thank you so much for watching.
Thank you very much. Of course, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share us with your friends. Let your friends know what you're watching and that you're watching us. And spread the news or whatever.
Yeah.
But follow us on Instagram at There Will Be Podcast, and then also on Twitter at Pod From a Basket. Yeah.
And we will leave you with our parting words, which is pretty much just going to be our English dub of
the OVA.
Oh, yeah, OVA.
So stay tuned for that. I hope that comes out as entertaining as it is in the movie. So.
But thank you so much. So have a good night.
Bye. Bye. Current weather is clear. OVA. The clouds are moving, but they're not rain clouds. OVA.
I hear you. OVA. Currently, your sister's lip is pouting like a duck's bill. Over. She is super annoyed. Over.